Good evening. This is June 3rd, Human Resources, Policy and Parent Community Intergovernmental Committee meeting. This is a reminder that if during the public comment section, if you had signed up prior to the meeting and registered, you will be called upon in the order that you signed up to speak during that portion. At this point in time, I will turn it over to the committee chair and the secretary to call the meeting to order.
Thank you, Dr. Bennett. I'm Brian Hemingway, and I thank you all for joining us tonight. And I'd like to call to order, and I guess we start off with a roll call.
Mr. Brophy.
Here.
Ms. Nyman.
Here.
Mrs. McWhorter.
Here.
Mr. Updegrove.
Here.
Mr. Hemingway.
I'm here.
Ms. Deeroff.
She did say it was storming, so I will keep an eye out if she pops in so you can record it.
I do not see her right now, so
But I will let you know if she pops in so you can note it in the minutes.
okay, thank you. Ms. Hogan.
Present.
Mrs. Denon.
Here.
Mr. Foose.
Here.
Okay, I guess that's it. So we'll do, if you may, we do a pledge of allegiance and a moment of silence. Silence, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, Dr. Bennett, are we ready to move on to our approval of minutes?
Yep.
Okay, could we, I guess everyone had an opportunity to review the minutes that were provided in our packet. I guess I need to see if there's a motion to approve our minutes.
McWhorter moves.
Hogan seconds.
Okay, now would we have to do this as a roll call, or can we just say if there's anyone opposed?
Mr. Hemingway, we usually do not do roll call at committee meetings.
Okay, so I would say then motion moved. So then, would that move us into public comment? Is there anyone signed up for a public comment?
The admin team's assistant said no, they received no request for speaking.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Bennett. That moves us along to our human resources, and I believe that would we move over to a presentation for Dr. Kim.
Good evening, everyone. Can everyone hear me? I'm having a hard time hearing.
Yes.
Thank you so much. We have a couple of items for Human Resources Committee discussion. The first one being creation of new position, Information Technology Systems Supervisor. This was discussed the last time when we reviewed bringing on the mid-level management group called a Supportive Supervisory Employee Group. And at the time, if you recall, Dr. Bennett did mention that there were 2 additional positions that, that was still being worked on, one being IT, a system supervisor, and the other one being a nursing coordinator. But at this time, we did want to bring forth the Information Technology Systems Supervisor. I do want to take a moment to just kind of clarify, while it does say creation of a new position, yes, it is a new position. However, we do want to clarify that it's not an additional FTE. Basically, the plan is to repurpose an existing FTE and have that employee, serve as the IT system supervisor. So Mr. Ionelli, the director of IT, with the support of Mr. Stout, worked on an impact statement that our administrative team provides if they're requesting a particular item. And in this case, because it is a new position, again, but not a new additional FTE, Mr. Ionelli did create an impact statement. It is several pages long. However, in summary, based on the analysis that Mr. Ionelli has conducted within his department, realized that the IT department is currently in need of additional support to be available after hours. One would think that school's not running 24 hours, so why do we need after hours? Believe it or not, and I think many administrators and teachers will acknowledge that our work does not end when we leave the school or our office. Our work is beyond that. And not only that, there are many times where we've had emergencies and the support's needed after hours. And recognizing that, the administration, along with Mr. Ionelli, did review the current classified network administrator position that is within the IT department. Again, it's network administrator, which is a position that assists with the networking, and review the earned overtime by the employee. And based on the review, the administration is proposing the creation of an IT systems supervisor position. Again, this will be part of a mid-level management group. And I think the key question, when we're looking at the current financial situation, the question becomes, how are we going to compensate for this position? So what we're proposing is that for this position, we're now looking to have additional costs to next year's budget, since it will be reallocation of the salary of the current classified network administrator position and the overtime that this position has earned over the last 3 years. So we actually looked at the past 3 years of overtime and took an average of that and coupled that with approximately roughly around $3,000 is additional funds that will be needed. However, Mr. Ionelli has made a commitment to cover that within the IT budgeted funds. Dr. Bedden, would you mind going to the attachment that shows the different funds that are there? Thank you. Can you increase that? Thank you so much. So this is the analysis that will help. I think sometimes, visual is always helpful. Looking at current 19-20 fiscal year pay rate for IT administrator, it's $28.29 an hour, and looking at 8 hours a day and working 260 days a year, the annual salary comes out to be almost $58,850 or so, around $843. And when we looked at the average overtime for the past 3 years, it was around $2,300 and some dollars. So if you add those two, salary plus overtime for this year is expected to be somewhere around $61,000, under $200. And again, that is looking at the average of last 3 years overtime. And then if we look at this IT network administrators pay rate for coming fiscal year, which starts on July 1, they're expected to have 2.6 increase, which is base Act 1. And that would make the hourly rate to be a little over $29. Multiply that by the number of hours that this position will be doing, it's a little over $60,000. And coupled with, again, just using the past 3 average overtime, one would expect this the position salary and overtime for next fiscal year to be $62,000 and roughly around $700. So, but, I think it's important for everyone to realize that this network administrator is a classified employee group. So any work that they do outside of their 8-hour scheduled day, again, 40 hours, over beyond that in a week constitutes overtime, which is time and a half. By converting this position into mid-level management group, we would not be incurring additional overtime. So IT system supervisors salary, what we're proposing, again, is 260-day employment would be $65,000. And for network administrator, for coming fiscal year, Dr. Ben, can we go up a little bit, please? Just a tad bit to the previous, yes. It'd be, as you can see, it would be $62,706. So, and the difference would be under $2,300. And that's the difference that Mr. Ainelli in his IT department, he would be willing to dedicate funds from his budget IT department to support that. And in essence, it's not, the proposed IT system supervisor position is not an additional FTE. It is a reallocation of a current FTE who is serving as the network administrator and having that FTE become an IT systems supervisor. And, having had in-depth discussion with Mr. Ainelli, and he can, explain it a little bit further, but for the size of our district, we only have 2 employees within the IT department that provides the network support. It is this network administrator and Mr. Ainelli, who is the director of IT. And, Mr. Ainelli has a huge responsibility, especially when we are, delivering instruction virtually. And candidly speaking, we're not sure what the fall will look like. So if Mr. Ainelli, if you could speak a little bit more to that.
Yeah, thanks, Dr. Kim. So just piggyback off what Dr. Kim was saying. So not understanding what's going to happen in the virtual world in the fall, we have to maintain about 355 access points that are in the brick and mortar. We handle 10 buildings with interconnectivity that is critical. That one building goes down, will not be able to maintain connectivity to have our students learn inside the classroom. So, we're very dependent upon our network connectivity, which is wireless internet connectivity, inter-building connectivity, and that's basically 24/7 operations. Now, the kids go home at 3 o'clock, but like Dr. Kim was saying, we're continuing on with, we monitor every piece of equipment that we have, that we know if it goes down, we have to react. We have to go in and find out why it's not working. So, we have to maintain those services that are up and running, ready to go first thing in the morning, Monday through Friday. And with teachers learning and preparing on the weekends and after hours, we have to make sure they have access to their file shares. And we have to do system updates, and we have to replace bad equipment, or God forbid we have a disaster where a building goes up. We have to be able to react and maintain, 100% uptime availability is what we aim for. So we really try to aim for that goal. And if one building goes down, students are impacted. So it's very critical that we have somebody other than myself that is available for those times.
And if I may, I think Mr. Ainelli, you may recall I reached out to you over the weekend because
Yes.
I could not access my share drive, and I was having a panic moment. I think it's no secret that my days in the district is limited, and I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, I have all these tasks to do, and I could not ask the VPN network. So Mr. Ainelli made himself available, even though he was celebrating his birthday. He took time off to kind of help me out. So, that's just the one sliver of things that could happen because we are so dependent on our technology. It's critical to have that network connectivity.
And historically, in information technology, IT is a 24/7 operation, regardless. So it's very dependent upon having services up and running. We get phone calls all the time to get a password reset, or again, can't get Global Connect to connect, so I cannot access my file shares, or my laptop won't power on. And we make those changes to try to get staff and faculty to work. And sometimes we have issues where students can't log in and they have papers to write, or they have things to access on Google. And if anything's down, they can't access it. Now, going forward for the fall, we're already working on plans that if we're not in brick and mortar, how do we offer software and applications that are critical to operations, things like chief architect, and how do we present those applications to students that are not sitting in a brick and mortar? So now we're looking at producing another level of application that services those applications up to students on their Chromebooks. So we almost have to have the same exact environment that the students have and experience in the classroom that we can provide at home. And the parents are just as inquisitive on how we're going to do that. What can we do to maintain that level of education? So it's very critical. Again, I'm 24/7. That kind of comes with the job, but it'd be nice to have a secondary person that if I'm not available, or to share resources. It's a lot of work to be responsible for on the weekends and after hours.
Thank you. And Dr. Ben, if we can kind of go back to the other document, please. Thank you. And so I think one of the things that I do want to emphasize is that, for the difference for coming school year, it is, roughly $2,300. But if you take into, the net cost of PSERS and FICA, which I know is Ms. Pitt's area of expertise, but having spoken to her, roughly comes out to be, approximately additional $3,000, again, which, Mr. Ionelli, as a director of IT, has made a full commitment to making sure that it is covered by the IT budgeted funds. And if you can look at, again, to reiterate number 2, second note, which is that, for the size of our district and the amount of network support we need for our, the work that we do, which is to educate our students, we simply at this point in time have network administrator and the director of IT. So by, proposing this position, it will actually down the road capture more savings and allow more supports that's, beyond the typical 8 hours in a day support.
Mia, I have a question.
Yes.
I don't know if we're at that point. So I'm confused. How many are in our, and this is, forgive me for asking this question, how many are in our IT department?
Okay, so I don't have that number. We do have technicians, but their work looks different than the network person. Someone who, maybe Mr. Ionelli can explain that a little bit better, because that's the world you're in.
Yeah,
Okay.
we have roughly a total on all, I think it's 13 or 14 employees. 2 of those employees that run the print shop that are printing, about 1.5 million pages per month from the print shop. We have 6 slots available, 6 technicians, which are basically level 1, level 2 technicians that answer the phone, and they do desktop support. So they'll answer phone, create tickets, and they will go out to those 10 or 11 buildings and provide desktop support to handle those end users during the day for brick and mortar. We have 1 network administrator, we have 2 server administrators, and we have an instructional media technician, which basically is responsible for all the classrooms, the iPads, the Mac machines, all those things that are done inside, projectors and smart technology in those classrooms. So I believe it's 14 with the part-time help in the print shop.
So of that 13 or 14, are most of them capable of handling most emergencies that would happen to come across in a given day?
No. So then the network part is more of a skilled position that requires training and network, understanding of networks and TCP/IP protocols and cabling and those kind of things. The technicians that handle the day-to-day things are more basic Windows desktop troubleshooting. I can't print. This file doesn't work. Those kind of things. Or majority of those technicians are not in that level of expertise.
Michael, how many of that group would you say would be capable of handling an emergency under those conditions?
After hours, just myself and the network administrator. That's it.
And the network administrators who you're recommending that you want to bring to the supervisory group?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Between the two of us, we can pretty much handle anything that would be required off hours.
Okay, so most of the time it's either yourself or this other fella that we are accumulating overtime hours for.
Yeah, so if we have an emergency after hours, I normally try to handle first call. We bring the network administrator in. And if it's a server side thing, sometimes we bring in server administrators. But, with this position being a salary, we would limit any additional server overtime. That would be another benefit or reduction in cost that we would be able to do with the two of us. So it would be myself and the network administrator could handle those functions.
And
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Hemingway,
Yes,
to answer your earlier question, there are a total of 13 staff members within the IT department, and of the 13, two work in the print shop. So technically, it's 11 technicians, people who work in the true IT area.
Okay, well, I'm just curious as far as what kind of calls are we considering emergency after hours? In other words, are some of these calls, could they be allocated to some of these other employees and not necessarily dealt with by our higher ups, for lack of terms? I'm trying to bring from my being on the board on the sewer authority, kind of taking some of the experiences I've had from there, as far as how we structured it so that not everybody is watching the drain go down the toilet. We would have people who were on call so that if there was an emergency, it was allocated evenly throughout the group so that people were, overtime is something you need to monitor, yes, but it is also an incentive for people to get an increase in their pay. It also keeps their attention. And I'm just trying to explore the idea a little bit of, can we provide an opportunity to some of these other technicians to have their availability as an on-call basis to, satisfy some of these emergency situations. Now, if it's beyond their technical skill, of course, then that's something that they would have to bring on the director. I don't know. I'd just like to see if there's any other avenues that we've explored of how to maintain this overtime without just allocating it to a salaried position.
That's a great question. So let me start by saying anytime we talk about servers and network equipment, we're talking about a higher level of technical ability. We're talking about people who have gone to school, have learned about networks and network equipment and how to keep those things running, and servers and how to keep those things running. They require a higher level of support, a lot higher level of technology and education and experience. So I have 23 years experience and I'm okay with it. I basically built the network. The network administrator and my server administrators have multiple years of maintaining this kind of equipment. It is not for anybody. The rule of thumb is you don't let people in who don't have experience and have knowledge. It's usually role-based. It's very critical that people who don't know what they're doing stay as far away as possible, because the impact of having the wrong person in there could basically take the entire system down. So it's very critical that we have the right people, and the team that we have in place, we have a network administrator and we have server administrators, and those are role-based positions. And frankly, I would, if we had larger teams of network administrators, I may have two network administrators that could handle a load, but we don't. We have one. And the cross training involved and the skill set that would actually be involved to maintain a firewall. Like, we're talking like firewalls that can go down. We're talking wireless technology. Again, we have 350 access points. We have over 90 network closet switches. Each one of those closets have a UPS, which is an uninterrupted power supply. It's basically a battery that keeps that system up. So overall, we have probably 1,000 network devices that have to be maintained and monitored, and that requires a skill. And not to diminish the rest of the team, but that job requires skill. Somebody's got to go in and play with policies. They have to play with rules. Have to make sure students can log in. So there's Active Directory. There's a lot of different pieces that we just don't open up to everybody, basically to make sure we don't have risk.
Okay,
I hope that answers your question.
it does. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Brian, I have a question.
I'm sorry, James. I'm sorry, Mr. Brophy. Yeah, I just throw this out there. I have a hard time seeing who has the questions or not, so I won't take offense to anybody just chiming in.
Yeah, I can't raise my hand. It won't come up. So
Mr. Hemingway, you have Mr. Brophy, then you have Ms. Denon, and I see Ms. Nyman on my screen, just to give you a heads up.
Thank you so much, sir. So yeah,
And
let's start with Mr. Brophy then. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I would say I've been convinced that the IT portion is very important, that we needed it. It's an integral to the operation of the schools as we move forward in today's world. I guess where my concern comes up right now is when we start speaking of risk and risk mitigation. What I'm hearing is I have 2 people that can handle the network and 11 people that if the network goes down, they can do nothing. So like Mr. Ironelli, if you go on vacation and the other gentleman or whoever it is has a family emergency or gets sick, our network goes down and we have 9 more people or 11 more people in our group, but we can't fix anything. So what is your plan on that? Or how do you handle that on a normal basis? I mean, this might sound off base, but it does play into around the clock coverage and spreading your resources out so you get more out of them.
That's a great question. So we normally do is we build in some kind of a failover and redundancy. So to start off, we always try to make sure we have monitoring systems that we can monitor each piece of equipment. So if something does hiccup, we're getting alerted before the end user gets alerted. So as far as regards to vacation, your question of vacation, normally we don't allow 2 people to take vacation at the same time. So if I'm on vacation, one of our senior systems administrators, our server administrators, or the network administrator one of us will take off at the same time. We won't have a vacancy of positions that will not be available. Now, if that person has an emergency, these are undue risks. I mean, I would love to have more network administrators, but we don't have that. So our risk is going to be that if we have a major disaster, that one of us will be there. Whether if I'm on vacation, I leave vacation to come back, or that person comes back. I mean, that's really the risk assessment that we have. We do have some people that can, that handle the server. So we do split the risk by saying this server, the server environment is handled by 2 technicians, and the network side is handled by 2 individuals. So we do have some redundancy. Myself, I can do both. So I have the ability to do the server side and the network side. So we do have some rollover and some coverage between the teams. But as far as the network side of it, it would have to be myself or the network administrator to either make the adjustment to come back and fix it, or log in remotely and fix it, which we have done in the past.
And if I may, Mr. Ironelli and Mr. Stout and I did have discussion about, hey, we do have 1 vacant position that's just a regular technician, about the possibility of switching that position into a junior network system personnel. I'm trying to think of the proper term for that. And, we're also trying to work within the confines of the budgeted, salary. So that's a little bit tricky. So we are discussing that. And, if all works out, we would love to bring that forth to, because it is a new position. Again, not an additional FTE, but reallocation is what we're, actually exploring.
Yeah, Mr. Brophy, just to speak and piggyback on what Dr. Kim just shared, Mr. Iannelli and I have frequent conversations, and really there is a concern about, building more internal capacity to help support the department. So, to Dr. Kim's point, those are absolutely conversations that we've had to, put a junior person in there with the same salary structure of, what we currently have budgeted for the upcoming school year, and build that specialized capacity for a specific individual to help be a third tier of support, when needed.
Yeah, I agree. It just seems like we're out on a limb here with our support. Sorry about my dog, but with the fact that we can go down and we're only one heartbeat away from not being able to get back up, and that's a concern.
And when you really think about, what's transpired since March 12th and, over 6,000 plus students having to access our network, most people think of it as an external component to their own internet base, but understand that internet that they are connecting to is warehoused to Boyertown Area School District. So
Correct.
Any Google platform or anything that happens, I mean, whether this is known or not, but the first week of our COE plan, there was a shutdown. I think it was like day 2 or 3 when we went into our process that was the mandated, instruction. And, it wasn't necessarily a specific Boyertown thing, but it has catastrophic instructional implications when in fact, something goes down. So Mr. Brophy, absolutely that's a global concern for our conversations all the time.
Okay,
Mr.
thank you.
Hemingway?
Yes, sir. Mrs. Denon.
Before you go on, before you go to the person, follow up to Mr. Brophy's question and just share my response to him. What you just described is pretty much a concern that was noted when I arrived in the district. And the first thing, if you may not realize, is that we literally did not even have a director. So we were in transition. So this has been heavy lifting, to be fair to Mr. Iannelli. These are the things, he had this conversation with me within my first year, the things that you just raised. And again, it was, this has been a 18-month planning process of trying to figure out how to do this within budgetary limitations that we're facing. But he actually early on identified these types of challenges to the point that we actually try to figure out how to have a third party backup in case something like this happened at the time. And it just did not work out when we met with several companies within our cost parameters that we couldn't even move forward because at the end, it's one of those things like you pay for insurance and you hope you never use it type attitude. And the catastrophic event of the system, and we've had a couple incidences where the system has gone down where he's had to reroute or do some things differently than we've done in the past because our span of control was limited with regards to being able to address it locally. As well as you've seen, I think you may have been on the board, if not, the amount of work that the team has done when they cleaned up their data room and all those types of things that just were not where they should be for the standard that we would hope. And finally, my biggest comment is between the 2 meetings today with both superintendents in both counties, so 22 superintendents in Montgomery and 18 in Berks, and then also with the group that met with Senator Mensch today, so 3 different meetings. We're all kind of sweating bullets about what are we going to do next year. And what you just described would be catastrophic if our system crashes on us as we plan to try to deliver academic services next year, knowing that we're going to have some type of capacity that maybe even at least blended next year, that the systems and what we're trying to put in place to be able to be prepared for if something else happens again with another wave or something like that. So it became even more critical to try to address his concern now. And I will share the board, we actually have had to call him back from vacation to address issues, just to give you some tangible issues that go along with the comments you made, Mr. Brophy.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. I think you've answered, but one of the other things you've answered too for me is you are thinking about some sort of internal cross-training program, which I believe would be of immense benefit to you. So it sounds like you've answered my questions, and thank you for the work on it.
My pleasure. Thank you, Mr. Brophy.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on. Ms. Denon had a question, and I believe Ms. McWhirter may be in the queue.
Well, I saw, just to be clear, it was Ms. Denon, then I saw Ms. Nyman, and then I think Ms. McWhirter, but I want to make sure I share with you, Ms. Nyman's hand was up after Ms. Denon.
Okay.
And I don't know if she still has a question, but because her hand is down, but she did have her hand up earlier.
Okay, we'll go Ms. Denon, Ms. Diamond, and then Ms. McWhirter. I'm sure Ms. McWhirter would be fine with that. So, Ms. Denon.
So I just had one quick question in reading all of the thing that you said about the statement about why we're going to do this. And I think I understand it, but it says that we will promote, but any work outside 8 hours will result in additional cost to the district. So that would not.
Yes. No, you know what? And I'm glad you brought that because on the board doc under admin content, it's been updated. My apology.
All right, that's what I thought. I thought that was probably just a typo, but it was like right above it is like the reasons to do this. And I just wanted to double check on that. That's all I had.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Nyman, please.
Thank you, Mr. Hemingway. Mr. Ionelli, how many hours of overtime have we been talking about for this position in the past?
Dr. Kim, I'm going to have to refer you on how many documented on that.
Sure. So our system does not track the hours. It gives us the payment that the employee has earned for that fiscal year. And it's important to note that, one of them goes back to 16-17 fiscal year, and then the other one 17-18, and then the other one was 18-19. So we're talking about almost $2,700, $1,300, and almost $3,000. And right for this year, I know that we've had more other projects. The phone system and so forth. So I don't have the total overtime for this year yet.
But I can comment to say that our current situation is that we started, from last year's budget, we bought about 90 switches, and our current network administrator has been in nights, weekends, after hours to adding, to replace switch closets, rewire switch closets. Some of these switch closets, if I showed you pictures, you wouldn't sleep at night. So we went back and we readdressed them, we cleaned them. So all this stuff has to be done after hours. So he did spend quite a few hours replacing. We have 15 switch closets, I believe, in the high school and middle schools. He was working on those as well. So there's another 5 or 6 there. So I would say, it was pretty significant this year as far as overtime.
Mr. Hemingway?
You're muted, sir.
My hand up.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Kim, just to answer Ms. Nyman's question, and it's not totally accurate, but if you look at the dollars of the 23, roughly 33, and then you divide it by the hourly rate, on average, you're talking about 83 hours.
Thank you, Dr. Benton.
Dr. Benton, actually, you have to multiply the rate by 1.5 because it would be time and a half.
Time and a half.
So I calculated about 55 hours on that average.
And this year's probably higher, if I believe, because of all of the technology that we've had to roll out with regards to COVID-19 impact and going forward. Yep.
And all the overtime.
Average number using what you said. Thank you for reminding me of the time and a half, Carol. But that would be, Ms. Nyman, an average number, just to be clear.
Thank you. I thought I calculated around 55 hours, and Dr. Kim confirmed that. Thank you.
That was very good teamwork.
Yes.
Okay, Ms. McWhirter, you had a question, please?
Ms. Deroff also asked, just so you know.
Deroff, please, I apologize.
No, I mean, it was Ms. McWhorter, but you know, in case you didn't hear, Ms. Deroff said she wanted to be next.
Okay, Ms. McWhorter and then Ms. Deroff.
All right, so first, happy belated birthday, Mr. Iannelli.
Thank you.
You look great for 29. So I think my question has been answered between you and Dr. Bedden, what you said already, and sort of along with that risk management that Mr. Brophy was talking about, is that have we looked at outside contractors? And I think the answer to that is yes. Cost prohibitive?
Yes. Very expensive. Normally they bill anywhere from $200 to $300 an hour. And in my experience, you know, my responsibility is to make sure that we maintain 100% uptime. Our technicians are skilled because I would prefer them to be able to maintain our equipment. Number one, it gives them experience. Number two, it gives them some leadership ability and gives them some ownership, which means they maintain the equipment that we have. That way we can be less dependent on outside contractors.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Deroff.
I just have one question, or maybe two. The hours of overtime you're talking about, $2,300 or something immaterial, is that just for one employee?
Yes.
Yes.
So my question would be, I'd like to know what that whole department bills out in overtime, because some of our overtime has been obnoxious. The other question I had was, this one person that you want to make to be a supervisor, that's an administrative network. How about the servers? Are you contemplating making them also supervisors in the future?
No, and that's not the plan for question two. The plan would be to have this new supervisor get more experience and be able to handle the servers as well, along with myself. It would be definitely a team effort. But you know, during the day and on normal operations, we have a server team where we have 2 server administrators, unlike the one network administrator we have for the network. But we would let them maintain those systems during normal operations. And do updates within those times, but anything after hours would preferably be done by myself or the new supervisor, which would then reduce the overtime within the department significantly.
Do you get a lot of evening calls, so to speak?
I personally get a ton of email questions and calls. This doesn't work. I can't get in. I'm constantly doing that. So depending on if it's emergency or not, you know, if it's I answer most of those calls. I'm always on the phone. So if we have a down emergency, which we have done, and you know, my experience with ransomware attacks, I've been very privy to those. And if we have one of those, it's going to require a significant amount of hours. So we want to make sure that we have everything updated, our patches done, we make sure we have our servers secure. So all these things have to be done after hours while we can't take them down during the day. So there's a lot of outside the hours work that does go into maintaining this equipment and making sure we're secure.
Right, and that has nothing to do with what isn't working today.
No, yes, there's like different slices of this pie. You know, we have the normal stuff, which is updates and critical updates. Number 2 is if something goes down. We went down today. We had power went down today from that storm. We lost 3 switch closets because the generator wasn't powering those switch closets. So there's always, you know, we're always going to plan for something. And, you know, we have to make sure we have alternative plans to make sure we can get things up and running.
Okay, because I was going to say, you know, I think maybe some people expect a lot, because if mine goes at home here and I call Windstream, they tell me when they're coming. And it might be 3-4 days later or whatever. And, you know, you gotta make do with it.
I would love that. I think that would be great for us. I applaud you, but we have an SLA, service level agreement, which is basically system outage is basically we're attacking this problem in 1 hour. If I can tell you that if email hiccups 1 blip, I get 25 phone calls. So it's that critical that it's one thing drops I'm informed. So we're very dependent upon email, file connectivity, login connectivity. There's so many different avenues that we're working beyond 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Plus with Infinite Campus ties back into our network for authentication purposes. And if that goes down, students can't go in, parents can't get into the portal. It's very critical. And I know I sound redundant, so I apologize, Mr. Roth, but it's very critical to make sure these services stay up as much as possible.
No, that's good because we need to understand what you're asking for. And the only way we understand is if you tell us.
Yes, ma'am.
So thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Okay, are there any other questions that I'm not seeing? Just please chime in. Okay, so Mr. Updegrove, I see you have appeared on my screen. Do you have a question or a comment?
No, it was answered earlier.
Okay, great.
Thanks, sir.
So this is one area that I'm pretty hobbled at as far as technology goes. So I think it's a reasonable request as far as I'm concerned. You're the experts, and I think this is something that we do need to be prepared for next year. So I'm going to refer to Dr. Bennett and ask him what action do we take next?
This would be something that would go forward to the committee so inclined to go forward for a voting meeting because it can go through the normal process. It doesn't have to be rushed, so we could put it through I think it's the 23rd voting meeting.
Okay. So should I ask if there's any other questions or concerns? Otherwise, we'll bring this to the voting meeting on the 23rd.
In the past, if I recall, Mr. Hemingway, I think there was sort of like, thumbs up or, is everyone, committee members okay moving this forward to the next board meeting for, approval?
That's kind of what I was getting at. If there was any
Yeah,
other concerns that anybody had. So I'm not hearing any, so I'm assuming that it's okay that we're going to bring this to a positive vote on the 23rd. If there's any objections, please speak up. If not, we're going to move on. Is that okay?
I have more questions later, Brian.
Of course, always, all the way up until the 23rd. Your vote, all the way till the end. But as of now, I think we've covered it pretty well. It seems to be a reasonable request, a well thought out request as far as I'm concerned. But please, if you have any questions, let's bring those forward. And, they definitely will be addressed. So with that, let's move on. Till we have a review of an employee handbook. Now, Mia, is this something that you have a presentation for or you would like to discuss?
So it's not necessarily a presentation, but more of a, it's a lengthy item to present. Honestly, it is, I can't even, so let me, if I can just open my own version, it is 79 pages long. So yes. So it is quite lengthy. One of the things I do want to share with the committee and the board is that, in any school district and frankly in any organization, they typically have an employee handbook. I do believe at some point Boyertown Area School District, probably did have an employee handbook, but it's been a challenge to locate one. So when Dr. Bedden came on board, which was a couple months after I came on board, we talked about, he was inquiring, well, do we have an employee handbook? I'm like, I can't seem to locate it. So, he did want to make sure that we had an employee handbook. So it really was kind of put together, we had a draft at the end of last school year, but we, for various reasons, we did not bring forth. And now, with my time coming to an end, we wanted to make sure that we put this out. It has been updated recently to make sure that some of the changes that have occurred are noted in there, to make sure that at least the committee has had a chance to review it. Because the employee handbook really serves as a communication resource guide for our employees. It clarifies the mission of the district, the values, the policies, the procedures, and also the expectation, and along with various procedures in a written document format. And it's a guide that employees can refer to for guidance. And again, this is not something that requires an action from the committee or the board necessarily, but it is just to kind of let everybody know that it's been drafted, and we want to make sure that at least the board has had a chance to review it. And if there are any questions, certainly by all means, let me know, and then and we'll try to address that. And there are some sections that have been highlighted that is relatively, it might be new. So that's pretty much the gist of it. There are various sections embedded in there. It has, I think, as you can see by the table of contents, it talks about the use of technology, and when we have employees that are issued district technology, how to safeguard them from theft and from loss and destruction. So we have protocol in just raising everyone's awareness. And then we also have just general policies and practices that I think pretty much anyone can think of. The information is in there, including, teachers, certification process as they're obtaining their level 2 certs. That piece of information is embedded in there as well, along with and how to report their absences, which are very standard approach. And the last piece that we did also add was the important phone numbers for district employees to know for different departments. And we also have, safety back information in there as well. It's a big document, and I realize it's going to take some time to kind of sift through and digest. But I just want to at least kind of, put it out there for the board to review. And again, by all means, any questions.
I have a question now.
Sure.
Yeah,
and I'll do my best to answer. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I should not say, Mr. Hemingway. You're the chairperson.
Yeah. First off, I'd just like to say, Dr. Kim, thank you for all the tedious work that you did put into the document. I honestly haven't gotten through the whole thing. I'm maybe a third of the way through, and that's enough to know that you really did put a lot of thought in this, and I do appreciate that effort and hard work. And now I'd like to open up if there's any comments or additional questions that any board members would have. And I think that was Ruth who wanted to chime in. So please.
McWhorter.
Forgive me. So, please, if you have a question or a comment, all yours.
Okay, the question I had was, why is from page 45 to 49 empty?
Empty? I'm sorry, did I hear you say it's empty, Mrs. Deeroff?
Yes, there's nothing there.
Okay, I'll make sure. I'm not sure why it's not there. Let me go to page 49 on my document.
Trying to get this off and it won't work.
Sure, because does this say 49 in the bottom corner, Ms. Deeroff?
I guess, yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking at 49 on the screen, and okay.
We'll make sure you get the version.
I have
version.
nothing on page 45, 46, 47, 48, and 49.
Well,
Okay,
we'll check that, yeah.
Yeah, we'll check that, and we'll make sure you get the correct version, Mrs. Deeroff.
I bet everybody else has it. Thank you.
I haven't made it that far.
All right. Well, this is the one that's being showed is the one that's in board docs. So, Mr. Owens, if you want to click on that one, it's the exact one I'm showing now, and it has a 49. So that's, if you don't, we can send you an electronic version, but if you want to see one right away, this is the one that's being displayed on the screen, is actually attached to the agenda.
All right, Mr. Deeroff, I'll ensure that you get an updated version and that you do have all the pages as the rest of us.
Thank you.
I do have Ms. McWhorter, did you have a question or a comment?
Just a quick question, comment. Yeah, this is a huge document. I also haven't gotten all the way through it. I just wanted to know, since this is like a living document, how often is it going to be reviewed and updated, and will it be the Chief Human Resources Officer responsibility?
Yeah.
It is the Chief Human Resource Officer, and it is our intent to obviously have to review it and update it annually and make changes. Obviously, if something changes, whether it be that we change process and procedures, some things like Title IX has just changed again this year for K-12. So if there's anything in here that has to be modified, I'm not saying it does, but we may make references to another document. And then we try to have this done in a way so that, for example, you try to avoid putting in a handbook anything that supersedes your collective bargaining agreement. So it just refers back to often the collective bargaining agreement.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'm going to ask if there's anybody else who has a question or a comment, please just chime in. Okay, I'm going to take that as a no, and thank you, Dr. Kim, for providing that handbook with us. Again, that was a lot of work, and I know we all do appreciate it.
Not a problem. I think of it as my parting gift to Boyertown.
Thank you. So let's move on down to, we're going to have a review of the professional job descriptions. And again, I'm going to be honest, I didn't make it through all of them. I started reading through, and again, that's another extensive a grouping of documents. So again, Dr. Kim, if you have anything you want to add.
Not a whole lot. Again, these are just for professional job descriptions. I will be candid and let you know there's one that's not added to this group, and that will be coming shortly. That is the school counselors. Ms. Horton and Ms. Torsha wanted to take a closer look. I think in light of the social emotional components, that is becoming a really important piece for our school counselors to be able to help support our students. So they wanted to make sure that that is embedded in there. And if for those of you that did review them, at least a couple of them, you will see there are some key responsibilities for all these job descriptions that you kind of see being repeated. And that is the virtue of just being an educator in a public school setting, that there are some common responsibilities that are embedded in there. Other than that, again, it's a lot of information to digest. And I wanted to make sure that, the committee and the board members had a chance to review it. And, again, it's not something that needs to be decided upon now, but down the road at the next board meeting, we do want to be able to approve these job descriptions as being official ones.
And Mr. Hemingway, this was, again, along with the handbook, another identified issue that needed to be addressed, and it was also identified as an issue even by our legal counsel. That this needed to be addressed. So this was a huge, task, of trying to get a lot of things updated in our district. And I just put a sample up of the format that you can see, the central responsibilities, any key items, as Dr. Kim said, she highlighted to make it easily identifiable, the qualifications that we expect. But this also was something that when you talk about recruitment, it helps people understand what is it that I'm going to be asked to do if I'm going to apply for this job, whether it be an internal candidate or an external candidate. And that was something, as we are also, remind the board, moving to a application system that we're getting ready to move to that is controlled internally by the district, that allows us to receive applications directly rather than PA REAP. And that application system also allows us to communicate with candidates and let them see where they are in the process with regards to paperwork or anything that's missing to complete their file. And it also allows us to prepare to have much more a digital world with regards to employee records and files rather than intensively paper. Has been obviously, Dr. Kim is the short timer again, so she won't be here to struggle through that painstaking process, but I do want to thank her because these are two projects that I made a big deal about to get done, and she worked very hard to try to get, if not all of it, the bulk of it done before she left.
Thank you.
Yeah, Dr. Kim, thank you. These were documents that were imperative to us moving on and starting to set the precedents for what the future is going to lead to us.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Dr. Kim. This certainly is very beneficial to me. I had asked a question a while back, and they said it didn't exist. I think it wasn't probably said the exact verbiage, but I had asked for a list of, like at the school, especially the high school, of a chart like we have for administration, like who's at the top, who goes next, who's next, like it certainly is Dr. Bedden and then Dr. Foley and then all the assistant principals. I get a lot of questions sometimes about, you have department chairs, you have department leaders, you have instructional this, you have that. I'd like to know how the chain of command goes. Is there any way anybody can give us that?
So Mrs. Deroff, I think you're referring to organizational chart.
Yeah, like we have.
Okay. So we do have that as part of our board policy for the, it's in the, I want to say it's 003 or something of that nature, talks about the administrators from the board to the superintendent and the cabinet and so forth. But we don't have that one for at the school level. At each of the schools, I do believe they have a section where they talk about the administrations for each of the schools. Like, for example, for a middle school, it'll have the principal and the assistant principal. But then, because department chairs are not really administrators.
Oh, I know. I didn't have to just have the administrators.
Okay.
But I wanted to know in what sequence, like from the top going all the way down to just a normal regular teacher.
So I think this organizational chart that Dr. Bedden pulled up from our board policy, I think would give you a sense of that. So if you were to take a look at professional staff, in the middle of the chart refers to teachers and school counselors and so forth. So if you follow directly above them is the assistant principals or dean of SEAL.
Right, but I want to go down. I want to go the other way.
So okay, then let's start from the top. Let's start from the top. There's a board of directors, superintendent. And then if you want to stay at the academic side, there's assistant superintendent, assistant to the superintendent for teaching and learning. And then it veers off into two categories. Because this is Mr. Stout's department, he also supervises the IT as well as the Office of Teaching and Learning. And then below that director of teaching and learning, we have the curriculum supervisors. And then they also supervise the wellness and related arts coordinators, as well as instructional coaches. And then, so the dotted line means, yes, there's a supervision, but it's not necessarily the direct linear supervision. So on the other hand, we have Mrs. Torsia as the Assistant Superintendent of Student and Administrative Services.
Right, but where do like the department leaders and the coaches and the department chairs, where do they all fit in there?
They all fall under professional staff. They're all one bargaining unit, one employee group. So they don't supervise one another.
So one's not higher ranked, or I don't know, that's not the right verbiage.
So so I think, Mrs. Deroff, I think they don't necessarily supervise one another, but department chairs are, they head the department, so they have additional responsibilities. So I think, is that what you're asking for?
Well, I just wanted to know who followed who. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, so so at the building level, at the high school, it's the principal, who then under the principal will be the assistant principals. And then if you want to go to departments, they do have department leaders. but department leaders are not supervisors. They belong to the same bargaining unit.
Yeah, well, it didn't matter what they were or how. I just wanted to know how they followed each other.
Dr. Kim, I believe I understand what Mrs. Daroff is looking for. I think she would like to just see like the breakout of the department heads, maybe perhaps how many there are, the role of our coaches within a building like the high school, the middle schools, just to see where they're at layered underneath. Even though they're a part of the association, they're all part of the professional staff. I'm understanding her to say that she's just looking to see, like where do they fall within and where are they sitting? Is that correct, Mrs. Daroff?
That's what I thought I did say, but
okay.
All right.
Nope, that's what I understood.
So I guess what I'm unclear on what it means by sitting. So they're all part of the bargaining unit. So if we're looking for sort of a grouping within the association, like we have a group of coaches, we have department chairs, department leaders, and then...
Okay, I'm a teacher. I just come in. Now, who do I report to?
You report to the building principal.
I guess that was the wrong question. Who is above me that, and not the principal, like what other person would I collaborate with?
Okay, so maybe someone that you look to guide you, right, within your department. So if you're a science teacher at the high school, you're a brand new teacher, your supervisor will be one of the administrators. However, there's also department leaders at the high school, science department leader, like, whether it be chemistry or if it's that delineated, that would be someone you would go to for support and guidance because you're new to the school. You would also have a mentor.
Yeah, I know. Okay. I'm going to have to figure out how to word it what I want. Thank you very much. So it's me, not you, Dr.
Okay,
Kim.
no, it's okay. And I'll try to marinate try to see if there's a different way I can clarify too.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Brian, can I cut in maybe? It might help.
Yes, of course, Mr. Brophy, all yours.
Dr. Kim, what I'm hearing is that in an organizational chart, everybody fits in a block.
Yes.
Somewhere on that chart.
Yes.
And I think what Ruth's looking for is where is an organizational chart that has everybody's name in it in a block?
We don't have that.
I think that's what she's looking for. Like you've got a couple teachers what block are they in and where's their direct or indirect supervision go? And who like is there teachers' aides that go into them? I think she's looking for the blocks and who goes in what block on the chart. Is that Ms. Daroff, is that closer to what you're looking for?
Yeah, I think so. Like I don't know. I'm getting more of myself confused now. I know what I want, but I don't know how to say it.
Well, what Mr. Brophy, if you taking what you said, what it would be is because they change so much, we don't go to that level with teachers, but we could say who is in professional staff, who are those people. Is that what you're saying, Mr. Brophy?
Yeah, because in organizations I came from, like you'd have the president, vice president, directors, managers, supervisors, and then under each supervisor, you'd have the people that worked for them. The actual.
Right. But we would not go each individual person.
Okay, we did, yeah.
Yeah, because of the nature of the type of business we have in schools. We could put the title of like teacher is a part of professional staff, guidance counselor, but to go to that level of detail would be, again, the change, but we could put the title of teacher, guidance counselor in the professional staff, but we wouldn't say Jane Doe, John Doe, Henry.
Yeah, and that would probably work like elementary teacher, music teacher, speech teacher, SELs, all the different things like counselors.
Right.
I think that's probably what she's looking for, something like Mrs. Daroff is looking for, something like that.
So, Mr. Brophy, if I understand you correctly, I think what you might be, I'm wondering if you're referring to like we'll just pick an elementary school, they would have a spreadsheet of grade 1 are these, Mrs. Smith, Mr. Jones, Mr. David. Grade 2 are these teachers. And then they also have, grade 3, 4, 5. We have the reading specialists. These are the folks. Any other special education teachers. So you're looking for staffing list for each of the schools by department or by grade or by special area.
I would think by reporting contacts. Who reports up to who in what box? That's seen it.
Yeah, but so I guess what I'm saying is that when we say report to, they report to the building administrator.
Yeah, but doesn't a group report to like a department head and then to a building administrator? I think that's what I'm hearing the questions being asked.
Right, but when you say report to in our world, that's illegal. They can't report to them for supervisory because they're in the same collective bargaining unit.
Yeah,
the
that's
department head is a person who has duties in addition to, but they can't report to them because they can't, by Pennsylvania code, they can't do supervisory aspect over the same bargaining unit member.
Okay, so that would be kind of hard to put that into one box like that then. So you would have to make different boxes. Okay, I get it. Thank you.
But Mr. Brophy, we're not in their worlds.
Well, I mean, and unfortunately, that's the state law and the way it's done. Yeah.
Yes.
So
I've got a growing understanding. Okay, thank you.
So we work within it. The confines were given, so I apologize.
Yes.
All right, everybody, let's reel it in. Any other further questions or comments on the job descriptions? If not, we are going to keep moving along to our superintendent's itemized agenda. So last call for any other comments or questions for job descriptions. Just please speak up. Okay, I'm not hearing anybody, so I guess I turn this over to Dr. Bennett for the superintendent's itemized agenda.
Yes, one of the things that we're faced with is obviously with COVID-19, we have had to address multiple issues in a timely manner. There are in the solicitor provided language that allow for the flexibility and for the board and administration to address issues. The first one up is our transportation contract addendum that Mrs. Pitts has been working on. You have received, I believe, in multiple meetings, multiple weekly reports, information on this item. Based on the legislation that was passed, the state passed legislation expecting school districts to try to come up with a reasonable method to maintain your transportation services. The intent was that if transportation companies went out of business, it would cripple school districts also due to the fact that how will we get kids to schools whenever we return back into business? So I will, item number 7A is approval of the transportation contract addendum. So pursuant to our advertisement, reserving the right to conduct a public meeting as part of the committee meeting and to address a business that may properly come before the board that is time sensitive in nature. We are recommending that the Board of School Directors approve the addendum to the transportation contract as presented so that we can assure that Quigley bus service is able to continue to maintain services as we prepare to potentially have to have transportation services again beginning for next school year. I believe Ms. Pitts may have some additional information that she'd like to share on this matter.
Please, Ms. Pitts.
Actually, I thought Dr. Ben, you did an excellent job. So we are very happy to be able to work with Quigley Bus and come to an agreement that was beneficial to both of us. So we were happy to be able to do that.
Okay, I guess unless there's any further from you guys, I'm looking for a motion to approve.
Nyman moves.
You can't do that at a committee meeting, can we?
This, the way it was advertised, these items can be.
I forgot. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry.
No, you're fine, Ms. Deroff. This is not normal. This is not something we want to be normally how we do it, but we're trying to, the lengthy time negotiations, we're trying to make sure we get him resources as soon as possible.
I'll second
to
Ms.
sustain.
Nyman.
I
Okay,
do
so
have a question now.
I'm sorry, so I have an approval from Ms. Nyman and a second from Ms. Deeroff. I would like to open it up to any questions or comments.
Ms. Nyman has a question, I guess.
Yes, Ms. Nyman, please.
Should anything change from the state, because we know how they change things, could this alter this contract again?
Well, I mean, the state did not dictate what we did. The state asked us to make sure we do something. So the contract is based on our direct negotiations between our attorney and their attorney, and what we believe was reasonable that we could justify also through an audit process also. So the actual dollar amount and the substance of it, it was left up to the local level. Their only expectation was that we try to do something in good faith so that they did not go out of business. It was in both parties' best interest, obviously.
Okay, that part I understand, but could the state come back tomorrow and say, we're going to give you X amount of dollars, or we're going to take X amount of dollars away from you for transportation?
Well, that's always something that's a possibility. We know
how the state does things.
Yeah, I mean, so I don't know how to answer it other than tell you, I don't think that's going to happen. I think they were committed to helping districts to try to sustain as best they can. But anything is possible. I mean, the factual answer is possible. I don't see it happening that they're going to take something away.
But if they would come back and say, we're going to give you or we're going to take away, we would have to go back to this again.
I think we
more than likely.
We would.
Yeah, one of the things, and we've talked about this at the Finance Committee meetings in the budget process, we are anticipating because of the drivers being on unemployment, that period of time that it didn't transport, that we didn't transport, that we won't be eligible for subsidy, and that has already been taken into account for next year's budget. If that helps. I mean, hey, it'd be great if they turn around and say, oh, we're gonna forgive you, but right now we're not anticipating that because next year's subsidy is based on this year's results.
Okay, that kind of answers my question, but it's going to depend on the state. Thank you.
So Ms. Nyman, you approve, correct?
Yes.
So
I think that the question would be is she made a motion to make sure she's not withdrawing it, her motion, because you had a initial motion by Nyman and a second by Ms. Deeroff. So I guess we want to verify with your question. You're still.
I'm still on. I just had
okay. All right.
Okay. Excellent. Okay, so I have a first by Ms. Nealman and a second by Ms. Deeroff. Are there any other questions or comments? Please speak up. Otherwise, would this be a roll call vote?
Yes, it will, Mr. Hemingway.
Okay, I'd like to make a roll call. Take it to a roll call vote, please.
Okay, Mr. Brophy?
Yes.
Ms. Nyman?
Yes.
Mrs. McWhirter?
Yes.
Mr. Updegrove?
Yes.
Mr. Hemingway?
Yes.
Ms. Deeroff?
Yes.
Ms. Hogan?
Yes.
Mrs. Denon?
Yes.
Mr. Foose?
Yes.
Motion carries 9-0.
The next item is item 7B, another item that we want to make sure we don't lose coverage. This is asking for approval on stop loss coverage. This did go out. This is the lowest quote that we received through our broker. And again, there were several communications prior to this. I think 2 weekly reports, Ms. Pitts, regarding this.
That's correct, Dr. Bennett.
Item. And we're at the point now, again, that this is the best opportunity. We actually had to ask them for a little bit of extension than what they originally asked for time to do our due diligence and reviewing this information. And so at this time, to ensure that we maintain our stop loss insurance coverage, This is another case based on time sensitivity and the language our solicitor provided for us. We're requesting that the board approve and authorize administration to execute the contract with Reliance Standards to provide stop loss insurance coverage for claims exceeding $150,000 with a minimum annual premium of $586,361 effective July 1, 2020, to be renewed annually. And again, someone may say, well, it doesn't start to July, but the response date was actually prior to the date, and we did request and it did work with us to work through some clarity issues that we wanted. And we promised that we would bring this forward today for the board in order for them to agree to give us extended time to get the lower rate, the rate that they had provided us, which was the lowest rate that was quoted to us. Did I remember that correctly, Ms. Pitts?
You did, Dr. Bedden, and also that industry trends have been about 20%, and I can't remember what the original quote that was provided by Reliance, but Tryon was able to negotiate with them down to the percentage that they gave now, and the other advantages that this is the company that we are currently with.
I believe it was 20-something%, and we got it down to 11 point something percent.
20 is the industry standard. I can't remember if that's where they started or not, but I know it was higher than where
it
Tryon.
was up there.
Yeah,
I think we got it down to 11 point something, but again, I know this is being recorded, but it was close to half of the industry standard.
Okay, so I guess we're looking for a motion.
Sheriff moves.
Hogan seconds.
Second.
Okay, I hear a motion from Ms. Deeroff and a second from Ms. Hogan. Any comments or questions?
Can I ask a question, please?
Yes, ma'am.
What was the rate we paid last year?
You know, Ms. Deeroff, I have to go back and look. I don't think I put that in there.
I didn't see it, but okay.
I know I know the agenda item last time had the estimated total. And I guess I would just have to take what we have in the current agenda and just, maybe take out 11.5%.
That's okay. I was just curious what it was.
Okay.
No
Yeah,
problem.
I'd have to go back and look at, and we approved this, I think, June 11th last year.
Yeah, we have enough to do. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, if there are any further questions or comments, please chime in. Otherwise, we're going to go to our roll call vote.
Okay, Mr.
Okay, I'd like
Brophy.
to go to a roll call vote. Thank you.
Mr. Brophy,
Yes.
Ms. Nyman,
Yes.
Mrs. McWhirter,
Yes.
Mr. Updegrove,
Yes.
Mr. Hemingway,
Yes.
Ms. Deeroff,
Yes.
Mrs. Hogan,
Yes.
Mrs. Denon,
Yes.
Mr. Foose.
Yes.
Motion carries 9-0.
Item 7C. Item 7C is requesting the approval of employment for the new Chief Human Resource Officer for the Boyertown Area School District. I wanted to take this opportunity to thank Dr. Kim for her work. This will be our last official meeting with us. Dr. Kim was snatched up by a larger district, North Penn School District, so she'll continue to have her hands full, a well-regarded district at that. But we're bringing before you the request to approve Ms. Virginia Frederickson to serve as the Chief Human Resource Officer for Boyertown Area School District, effective no later than October 2nd, 2020. But if agreed upon, we are working on an earlier start date for her to transition to us, working in partnership with the other school district. Mr. Frederickson has many years experience in private sector and then moved on to public education, where she has spent the past 20 years working in Westchester, which is a large, well-regarded school district, Upper Dublin, and then Centennial School District.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Bennon. At this point, I'm of course looking for a motion.
McWhorter moves.
2 seconds.
Big Road moves.
All right, I have McFurther as a motion. I believe that was that Mr. Foos for the second?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes,
Mr. Foos as a second. So are there any additional questions or comments? Please just chime in. If not, we're going to go right to the roll call vote. Let's go to the vote, please.
Okay, Mr. Brophy,
Yes.
Ms. Nyman,
Yes.
Mrs. McWhorter,
Yes.
Mr. Updegrove,
Yes.
Mr. Hemingway,
Yes.
Ms. Deeroff, Ms. Deeroff, you look like
I'm
you're-
sorry, I was
That's okay.
muted.
You were.
I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
The answer is yes.
All right. Ms. Hogan,
Yes.
Mrs. Denon,
Yes.
Mr. Foos.
Yes.
Motion carries 9-0.
Thank you very much, board members. And she may be in class, but I'll say publicly in case she's watching us, welcome aboard and get here ASAP. Next item is the personnel items. Can you all still see my screen? I think I'm projecting it correct.
Yes.
Okay. What you see is a correction to Mr. Rupert with a true date. His retirement was announced and it had, I believe, to be determined. His official date is August 15th. And again, we want to congratulate Mr. Rupert and thank him for his many years of service. Resignation.
Hey.
They were congratulating him also. Resignations, we have Jacqueline Miller for professional staff for physics at the senior high school, and Sherry Pivito out of our Ed Center. And we want to thank Mrs. Pivito for her years of service and her institutional memory that we will sorely miss. And a change of status, we want to congratulate Ms. Dulcie Rothermel for her selection to serve as a Dean of Social, Emotional, and Academic Learning. Ms. Rothermel currently serves as the Director of Secondary Special Education and believe that she could serve our district even more by pursuing the current position of Dean of Social, Emotional, and Academic Learning. These are time sensitive because as soon as we accept these, we would obviously be aggressively pursuing to backfill these positions in preparation of next school year. So we present to the board the personnel agenda as presented.
Okay, so I guess I'm allowed. I'm going to start this off and I'm going to make that motion. So I'm going to look at this, looking for a second.
Brophy. Motion.
Thank you, Mr. Brophy. So I have Mr. Hemingway and Mr. Brophy as a second. Any more questions or comments? Otherwise, we're going to go to the vote. Not hearing any, let's please go to the vote.
Mr. Brophy,
Yes.
Ms. Nyman,
Yes.
Mrs. McWhorter,
Yes.
Mr. Updegrove,
Yes.
Mr. Hemingway,
Yes.
Ms. Deeroff,
Yes.
Ms. Hogan,
Yes.
Mrs. Denon,
Yes.
Mr. Foos. Mr. Foos, I didn't hear you.
Yes.
Motion carries 9-0. That concludes these time-sensitive items. And again, Mr. Hemingway, but also Mr. Foos and Ms. McWhorter as the board leadership and elder committee chairs. Obviously, this is not a normal process, but work with the solicitor to get appropriate language and compliance so that we can address issues as quickly as possible that we're facing as we're vastly approaching the school year. More importantly, what you will be receiving from me and coming out shortly from the Berks County Superintendents is that, and you probably already know this, but for those who are listening, new guidance came out from the governor and Pennsylvania Department of Ed, which is asking us to develop a phased approach for reopening. So having as many of our staff and hands on deck is going to be absolutely critical for us to prepare to open schools in as safe and conducive fashion as possible, and as close to normal as we can get without risking people's health and safety. So that's, if you haven't heard about that, that did come out and you'll be receiving further information. But that concludes the itemized agenda for the superintendent, Mr. Hemingway.
Thank you, Dr. Bennett. That moves us on to committee comment. Is there, let's see, I'm going to try to see if you could please try raising your hand. I'm going to look through my participant channel here and see as your hand's raised and do the best I can. If not, please chime in. I won't be offended. So is there anybody who would like to start off with any comments? I'm seeing in my list here, I'm seeing Ms. Nyman. So let's have Ms. Nyman, Ms. Hogan, Ms. Worthy, and Foose. And Ms. Deeroff, I'm gonna take advantage and I'm gonna have you after Mr. Foose. So let's start off with Ms. Nealman, please.
Thank you. First of all, I'm going to sorely miss Sherry because anytime I called in there, she always gave me a laugh about something. So best of luck to her. Second of all, before you leave, Dr. Kim, I want your phone number because when I can't sleep at night and I'm reading your stuff, I want to be able to call you.
Absolutely.
I want you to be awake too in the middle of the night.
Oh, I am. Most of the night I am. No worries.
Third, I saw that Mr. Langdon is on here, and I wanted to say at the Fairview Cemetery for Memorial Day, the band was definitely missed, but he would have been proud of 3 gentlemen that played taps. It was a wonderful ceremony, not a lot of people. I want to say between maybe 50, 75 people were there, but it was a great little ceremony, but the band was sorely missed. And there was one other thing, but I can't think of it now. Gosh, I'm getting old. If I think of it, I'll let you know and I'll come back on again.
All right, thank you, Ms. Nealman. Let's, next I'm gonna go with Ms. Hogan, if that's fair. Ms. Hogan, please.
Thanks, Mr. Hemingway. I just wanted to thank Mrs. Kim for all of her work with the district and wish her luck in her next position.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you. Thank you for all your hard work. We do appreciate it. And the same to Mrs. Pivotu. Good luck. Best of luck in her next position as well.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Hogan. I have next, just come following down my list here, Ms. McWhirter.
So yes, first of all, Dr. Kim, thank you. You have been quite the teacher over these past 6 months for me. I've learned so much from you, and I just want to wish you luck in your new adventures at North Penn.
Thank you.
Onward and upward. And then happy graduation to our seniors that will be having their virtual commencement ceremony tomorrow, I believe. Is that correct? But happy graduation to them.
Yes, you are correct.
Okay. And then Ms. Pivoto, I wish her luck in her new adventures as well. That's exciting. That's it.
Thank you. Next up, I have Mr. Foose in my listing. Mr. Foose, please.
Yes, similarly, thank you very much, Dr. Kim. It's been a pleasure being able to learn from you and have you helping our district and all the work that you put in. And as you said, leaving us your gift with this employee handbook.
No, thank you. Thank you for your help along the way.
Absolutely, and best of luck. And similarly to Mrs. Pivoto, I've received plenty of help and information from her as well, and it's been a pleasure communicating with her, and I definitely wish her the best of luck in her new role. I'm excited for this SEAL position. Congratulations to Mrs. Rothermel there. I'm really excited about that role, and I think I'm looking forward to good things from that position. I also wanted to congratulate our seniors. That's tomorrow's, a day that we wish we could all be coming together, and we in a way will be virtually as people have kind of grown accustomed to over the past month. So I hope a lot of people do tune in to watch, see, and celebrate with them, for reaching this milestone in their life. It's a great achievement, and we are very, very proud of every single one of them and all the work that goes into getting them there. So I hope that they enjoy it. I hope that whatever they do in the future works out well for them, and that this is not something they have to endure for much longer. So best of luck to all of our graduating seniors.
Thank you, Mr. Foos. Next, I have on my list Ms. Duroff.
I have a lot to say tonight. First, I want to thank Dr. Kim for putting so many hours in. Sometimes I think she slept there. I see her car late at night and early in the morning, but that wasn't any of my business. I also want to thank Mrs. Pivito. I always called her Sunshine because she always spread the sunshine. When you called, you spoke to her, you just felt like the sun was shining. And so I had a nickname for her. It was Sunshine. I will miss her. The other thing, and I'm anxious to have our new HR person start, not to criticize Dr. Kim. Her shoes are going to be hard to fill, but I'm anxious that hopefully we don't have to wait very long. Now, the other thing I have to say is we're in the midst of the worst economic situation that I think any of us older people have seen since the Great Depression. We need to protect the taxpayers as well as the students during this pandemic, as well as after it's over. We have to always keep these people in mind. And saying that, I want to bring back to the table, whichever way you want to take it, the idea of renting out Pine Forge. Since we already had an offer, I would like to discuss that in detail. I think it can be done very easily. This is what I did for over 50 years, rentals. And I want to know what we have to do. Does it require a vote, Mr. Hemingway, or what does it require to bring this back on the table for discussion? Or can we do it tonight or whatever? The other thing I wanted to talk about was the pay that we paid some certain groups of people. We went back and paid them more later. I want to know what precipitated that. Things are happening that I never know when is the right time to bring it up or where to bring it up. But I'm going to stop being bashful. I'm going to bring them up. So I want to discuss that pay. I want with a certain group. I want to discuss Pine Forge. I want to see how many people will stand with me to discuss Pine Forge. And the reason I want to do that is because I don't know yet, neither does anyone else, what the state's going to make us do for school. We may need that school building. And if we have the opportunity to rent it, lease it rather, for a period of time, that's money that we don't have to put out to maintain it, to keep it in decent shape. And who knows, a landlord, a leasee sometimes makes improvements. We may get lucky. But I certainly don't think it's something we should just say we're not going to do it without a deep discussion. So I guess, Mr. Hemingway, if you don't have anything to say about it, do we have to do a roll call to see who wants to continue talking about it? What do we have to do?
Well, Ms. Deeroff, in regards to Pine Forge, I honestly don't have the answer to that. I'm in agreement with your thought process that it is an avenue that we need to explore. Now, the proper channels that we would have to take, you're gonna think that this is just a cop-out answer, but I think it's the one I'm gonna have to take. We need to consult our legal counsel to see what the proper channels that we even discuss a matter like that and pick the proper venue.
Okay, well, we don't have much time either, like everything else. We need to make decisions now, just like we had to make votes tonight at a committee meeting.
I understand that. That's why, again, I don't want to be put on the spot and give you an answer that I'm not qualified to give. That is
Okay.
something that we will have to. I mean, believe me, I'm on you. I agree, but we do need to make sure that we follow the proper protocol and follow the channels that we need to take. And I think that's something that we need to bring forth with our legal counsel in regards to that. So we do go about this in the proper way. The second matter, I'm a little confused of what that is, and you'll have to clarify with me. And I may have to consult with Dr. Bennon a little bit more on that. Just forgive my newness, for lack of words, to see with that. But to be honest with you personally, yeah, I agree with you on a lot of these matters and your thought process and the opportunities that we need to start taking advantage of. I just need to make sure that we're going to, as far as anything that comes across my plate, that we're going to follow the proper protocol and the proper channels to make sure that it's done efficiently and within our rights by law. That's fair?
Okay, can I assume then that you're going to contact the solicitor on both those matters and I can talk to you afterwards?
Well, actually, it is not this committee's position to do that. It actually is your board leadership on the matter the way you described it. If you remember the information we gave you, we actually have been talking to the solicitor. They were included in this process with regards to us even bringing it forward. It was because we brought it forward and we were open to the option that you're indicating your interest in. The issue is, how do we have time to do the due diligence when we're losing two of our key members who will be involved in helping us do the work to get that information done? One of the things that we shared in our reasoning and the list of reasons why, which included consultation with legal counsel. If you look at the last bullet item in that communication, of the challenges with being able to have the ability to give you the necessary information to make an informed decision. So for example, you alluded to the fact that we may not have to incur certain costs. We actually went out and consulted a person who's in real estate. There were a number of unanswered questions that needed to be answered to get to that answer that actually Ms. Nyman correctly asked. What is our cost factor? Is this enough to cover that cost factor? That was a very simple lease proposal that had a lot of unanswered questions that could have actually, have a cost factor to us, and we could not even begin to answer her question about whether this would cover the cost or not. And on its surface, we may end up still being able to pay something, and that may be fine with the board, but then it became a crunch time issue with everything else that's going on. We also knew anticipating what was going to happen today did happen, that we are now having to put out three plans, to the state with regards to how we would open school if we're in a red, yellow, or green status. So that's additional work. Teams are starting to meet to try to figure out how we're going to open school in a manner that will make parents feel safe. For instance, we met and the maintenance staff will have to go around and start installing plexiglass barriers for our offices. At some point, there's only so many things you can do. And our priority right now was first and foremost, how do we start shifting to preparing to open and get schools as safe as possible? We haven't even figured out how we're going to transport kids. Right now, if we did social distancing, we could fit 12 kids on a bus. if we follow the 6-foot rule. There are a lot of daunting things that, again, I think someone mentioned it earlier, to actually be, when we say to you that we have an inability to do the due diligence, to give you a sound recommendation, that is actually the challenge. We actually were excited for the very reasons you listed, that we had the ability to possibly consider the option to hold on to the facility, but also have it being used. But we also know that when Mr. Drescher walked the building, it will be in 75% use. So if we have any other need during that lease, we won't be able to use it. So those are the type of thought processes we were going through and trying to understand what is available, what isn't, and what's due diligence to give you a recommendation. Now, the board could absolutely tell us to go back and take the offer. But our challenge is there are other things that were shared with you in that communication that are unanswered questions that need to be talked about. So I would tell you that the next course of action would probably be an executive session to hear from your legal counsel, because lease agreements, those types of things can be discussed in closed session. And I would advise you to have that conversation in closed session based on the guidance we've already received with legal counsel. With regards to positions, I believe that may be referring to Mr. Hemingway, the coaching issue. Is that correct, Ms. Darrow?
Sure is.
And if you remember, there was no board decision about that. The administration has continued to be working on it to try to do what was right in compliance with law. And when we got clarification that we had always told you we've been seeking from the state to make sure that we would not be either penalized for doing or not doing it, ultimately, Mr. Sultanic said, actually, they do qualify for Act 13 guidelines. So to comply with Act 13, they were eligible to receive those compensations. So it was driven by legal consultation and ultimately getting feedback finally from the state about what actually does this mean and where. And the key point was when they were employed. That drove the final big mechanism, if I believe correctly, Dr. Kim, with regards to the decision, their employment date, and by the verbiage, as Mr. Sultanic said, if you read it literally, then they qualify as district employees.
Yes, and all of our spring coaches did provide services to the students, meaning they coached as early as, I believe, March 2nd or 3rd, sometime around there. So they did work for the district as coaches. And Act 13 of 2020, which goes until June 30th of 2020, that any that district employees, if they were working as district employees prior to the closure of schools, which for us was March, I believe, 13th, they are deemed to be employees of the district.
But we chose to only do a partial pay, if you remember,
Right.
why we were trying to get clarification about what their status was and how they qualify or didn't qualify.
Right, so it was brought up again at a meeting, then we rejected, I guess. But either way, I still want to talk about Pine Forge because we may need that school. And just because they gave us an offer of X number of dollars that they were willing to pay to rent it, doesn't mean we have to accept that. You negotiate with them.
Well, and that's the point, Mrs. Duroff. That's our challenge. To negotiate, we were trying to get what is market value, all those things. That is work. That's our challenge. The very thing you're talking about is what we talked about in the communication to the board. The time that it's going to take to do that analysis. You do know, Mrs. Our finance officer's leaving also. So we have HR that we're limping along until the person comes, a CFO who's leaving, and we're trying to prepare to open school.
Right, well, she wouldn't get the figures anyway. You'd have to go through
But she has to be a part of the numbers process. That's part of your financial officer being a part of the process also. And like I said, we were trying to engage also someone to get true market analysis of what is the fair market value for rental and those types of things to bring you that information. But there were also other things that we shared with you that were of concern that we don't have a lot of answers to also.
I think I'm going to interject. Everybody stop. I think that this may warrant an opportunity for us to have an executive session where we can properly strategize. Now, the offer that was on the table, I personally don't like to be rushed, and I think we're in the position that we shouldn't be rushed. I think that it gives us an opportunity to kind of, me personally, has piqued my interest that there are other opportunities for this building. But I think if we allow us the time, even if leave an opportunity. Here's an idea. Perhaps it might be cost effective to farm out some of this investigative work to a realtor or a management company or whatever, and have that cost absorbed in.
Yep, and that's an option that could be done. And again, I think that's why.
I'm just saying this isn't necessarily going to be decided tonight, but it does lead to some options for us to discuss down the line. We might decide this isn't the option for us.
The answer to the question, again, is it should be an executive session.
Right.
And again, it was put out asking the board, by the board leadership, if there was a majority who wanted to continue.
May I
And it
chime
was
in
done
for a
properly.
moment?
Of course, Ms. McWhorter, please.
I'd just like to remind everyone, it was mentioned by Mr. Brophy in the executive session as well, that we really should come prepared with these sorts of questions in emails to board leadership and Dr. Bedden before meetings, so that the administration is not surprised by questions that we ask during a meeting. And both of these questions were put forward in emails this past week. And I think there was very little board response, and it would have been a lot better if we had been able to start this conversation earlier than today at the end of the meeting.
I did call board president.
Sorry, Mrs. Darrell, what did you ask?
I said I didn't ask anything. I said I did call the board president about it.
Okay, I'm going to intervene. If this is a matter that we would like to pursue further in either executive session or have further questions from here on out, let's refer those correspondences to the board president. And if we do have a consensus of the board, we'll take action therefore if we want to have an executive session. But we're not going to discuss it anymore tonight. Ms. Deeroff, your point has been taken. I hope that's acceptable answer for you, as that's the best I can do as of now. I'll make sure that we look into this and have an acceptable answer to you and some kind of action in the near future. Is that fair?
Yeah, are we going to ask who's interested? Maybe there's not enough interested tonight.
I'm not going to ask right now. We're going to ask, you can correspond via email or how we normally have a consensus if an item needs to be brought further on. And that process is going to be, we're going to inform the board president or board leadership or Dr. Bedden, and if there's a consensus that this is a matter that we want to push forward, then that's what we'll do. If there isn't a consensus as far as board leadership goes, it's going to be dropped. Fair enough?
No.
I'm sorry you feel that way, but I'm not going to.
It's not shouldn't be up to two people. Board leadership is two people.
It's not board leadership. It would be a consensus of the board. They are just the liaisons collecting the data.
You just said board leadership. Sorry.
We have policies around all of these issues.
Yeah, we're going to follow policy, and I hope that's a fair enough answer, because, I would like to pursue some other options as far as that building goes, but we're not going to do it tonight. Any other further board comment?
Mr. Hemingway, can I get back in again?
Of course, ma'am.
Thank you. I know what the other thing was. I wanted to congratulate all the seniors that did that cruising for graduation on Sunday afternoon. Beautiful day, great set of students. They went by all the rules that the police had put out, I guess, and it was a wonderful day, great time. Kids deserved every minute of the glory. Thank you.
Ms. Brennan, I think I have you on the list. I apologize if I missed you. Honestly, through all this, I don't remember if I called on you or not. If I didn't, I apologize, please. If you have a board comment, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I'll make it real quick. I just too wanted to thank Dr. Kim. She has been very dedicated and worked very hard for our district and serving our district. So thank you and best of luck. And
Thank you.
also to Mrs. Pivito, I will miss her. She is, I have to agree with Mrs. Giroff, she is just such a pleasant person to go in, and when you see her in the Ed Center. So best of luck to her as well. And I just wanted to also congratulate the seniors. And I also want to say that I think it's really great that we have 150 administrators who are going to go to all of the seniors and deliver those diplomas and those bags given by the association. So I think that's really great. And I know that there was a lot of disappointment this year, and there was a lot of talk about how we were going to do graduation. And I think that it was a very collaborative effort. I think that the principals listened to the students, and from what I have heard from the students, they are, of course, they're disappointed, but the stage was put up. So I think that was really, really great. And we're making that personal touch with our students. And I think that's very admirable of our administration, and best of luck to our seniors.
Thank you, Ms. Denon. Any other board members for a comment?
Yeah, Mr. Hammond, Jim Brophy.
Yes, Mr. Brophy.
Okay, one we haven't mentioned is the Pine Forge parents and parent organization did a really, really good send-off for their, this is a very emotional time for them with the closing of the school, and did a really, really nice job of send-off to their students this past week also. In fact, I think you were there, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know if you went to that or not.
I stayed hidden, but yes.
Did you stay hidden? Yeah. But I think it was very nice. It once again shows that you had a whole bunch of people that really care. And I'd like to congratulate them on what they did and how they're showing class and their send-off.
Thank you, Mr. Brophy. Mr. Updegrove, I hate to call you on the spot. I just want to make sure I'm not missing you. Any board comment?
I'm good there, Mr. Hemingway.
Okay, thank you, sir. So then that just leaves for me. I just want to thank Dr. Kim for all your help. I'm new to the board, and you've been I've learned a lot from you. I've seen that you put in tons of work to our district. I do appreciate it. I have a daughter in the district, and as a parent, I do appreciate the work that goes on behind the scenes, if you will.
Thank you.
I also like to congratulate all students that are graduating. Again, I'm going to take a shout out to my daughter. I'm going to use this opportunity to take a shout out to my daughter and all her classmates in the 5th grade across the district who are graduating into middle school. I also I have friends who are seniors who are graduating, moving on into the new world. I just want to wish them luck and thank you for letting me be a little bit part of this whole process. Again, I know we're running late on time, but I've had some conversations with some people today in regards to some of the decisions this board has had to make. A lot of unpleasant decisions. And I'm glad we have the board that we have. I'm proud of the board that we have. I'm glad that the people are in here. I'm glad of the administration and the people that are making these decisions for my daughter as a father of this district, of having a student here. I'm proud to say that this board has maintained control of a situation that has been out of control. And I just want to let everybody know that I really appreciate the hard work that the administrators, the teachers, the parents, the students, the board members have put forth into the remainder of this school year. The hard work's not done. We got a lot of ways to go. But I just want everybody to remember, it's okay to be proud of ourselves. We did a good job. Everybody has done a good job. Parents, teachers, graduating students, administration. My gosh, I'm so proud of you guys. I've enjoyed my time on the board so far. Sounds crazy, some of the decisions we have had to make, but I'm glad to say that I feel good about my district. I feel that we do have good things to come. We have a new human resource officer. I'm really excited. I think she's going to bring a lot to our district. Dr. Bennett, I'm going to say this. I'm proud of you, man. Keep it up. I think we're all doing a great job, and let's see what tomorrow brings. So that's all I have to say as far as my comment. That brings us on to any announcements. Am I hearing no announcements? So then that would lead us to a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
I hear a motion to adjourn. Second?
Second.
I hear a second. I think that was Ms. Nyman to adjourn and McWhirter to second.
You are right
If
on,
that's the
Brian.
case, I call this meeting to an end. Thank you all very much and have a great night.